Hey, everybody, what's going on? Welcome back to a brand new edition of Daily to Dynasty. Happy holidays. As you can see, we got, I never get this right, the Christmas tree over here. My menorah's over there. It's the first night of Hanukkah. Celebrating all holiday season and also celebrating fantasy football playoffs. That's right. It is playoff season officially. I ended up losing my battle for first place in our league last week because Antonio Gibson hurt his toe. Come on. And of course, Darren Waller had a game of a lifetime against the New York Jets. It's certainly hard to compete with. Either way, we're playing in the playoffs. We play in the same league, Rich, and we are facing some. I'll call them co-hosts, even though they haven't been on a show in about our co-hosts Marcus Taylor and John Hazlett. I am facing John. You are facing Marcus. So we thought it would be fun to just kind of go through those matchups, talk about our lineups. I am in a bit of a precarious situation at running back due to the injury to Antonio Gibson that I'm hoping you and I can come up with some potential answers together to ensure that John doesn't get to advance to the next round of the playoffs. Yep. And hopefully I can help you out as well. Beat that purple stuff, Marcus Taylor. So let's kick things off, Rich, and let's start with the quarterback matchup in each of our respective games. So at quarterback, I am going with Teddy Bridgewater, who is no longer listed on the injury report, which is a good sign for me. He faces the Denver Broncos, which is a fantastic matchup. They do like to get after the quarterback a little bit, but at this point, the Bronco defense is not anywhere close to what they were a couple of seasons ago. But I'm facing one of the best quarterbacks in the league in Aaron Rodgers this week, who has the Detroit Lions. It's another favorable matchup. Aaron Rodgers is more than likely going to have a good game. So just looking down the line, I don't exactly love my odds of winning that matchup. But we'll get into a little bit later why I'm not overly concerned about that. So I think it's pretty easy to say Aaron Rodgers is a superior quarterback. I will lose that matchup down the line. But yours is a very interesting matchup here. Deshaun Watson for you against the Chicago Bears, against Matt Ryan facing the Chargers. Both have very even projections. What's your kind of gut telling you in those matchups?
I mean, I like both quarterbacks. The Chargers defense this year and atrocious. So, if it's anything like it was last, with the Patriots just blowing them out, what was it, 45 to nothing? I think Matt Ryan can do that too. And if that happens, I'm in a bit of trouble. I think Matt Ryan, he has all the intangibles to score 30 points a week. Julio has been hit this week. He hasn't practiced yet. Todd Gurley's hurt. He hasn't practiced as of yet. So his weapons are kind of in a ditch right now. But he's pulled it out with whoever plays with. And then Deshaun Watson. I mean, it's like he's succeeding despite losing pieces. He had a really good game last week, despite not having Will Fuller. It seems like the new coaching with Romeo Cornell definitely helps that out. So I think at the end of the day, it's going to be exactly what it says. It's going to be a 1 to 2 point difference between these guys. That's what makes or breaks our matchup.
Yeah, well, I think that this matchup could actually favor you a lot better than what the projections say. Let's look at the last 3 games from Deshaun Watson here, 2 of which were some pretty good defenses. The Indianapolis Colts, he put up 18.5 points. Against Detroit, he put up 33 points. Against New England, he put up 31 points. He's on a bit of a tear. Really, his only negative game came against Cleveland back in Week 10. Let's look at Matt Ryan, who, you would think is fantasy gold. But since the bye week, 7 points, 14.5 points, a little under 12 points. It's not so great in Atlanta right now. I don't know if he's going to meet his projection. He has a good matchup against the Chargers defense, but I don't know. He hasn't been doing it lately, but usually how I predict the Falcons is whatever I say, the opposite happens. So,
I mean, The funny thing about our match is we had this match last week. I've Marcus last week, and Matt Ryan and Zach Moss, who we're going to talk about pretty soon out actually. Zach Moss is running back last week. I was like, oh, thank God he let him in. But I think I beat him by like 6 points. But Matt Ryan definitely helped me last week. Hopefully Matt Ryan helps me again by sucking. But the Chargers, like I said, everyone looked good. So I think this is going to be a little bit of a different story. And that's an even too. I mean, the Chargers and the Falcons, I couldn't think of two teams that are kind of more even across the board. Two bad defenses with a lot of bigs on offense. It's going to be a really high scoring game. So.
From a game perspective, so not just a fantasy matchup perspective, but Texans, Bears, Falcons, Chargers. But what are your predictions in those games?
I like Texans. I think every team that's going to face Bears, I'm going to pick the opposite team. I just think they're about to face. And then I think I like the Chargers. Just bounce back. I don't think you can beat that bad. And as a head coach, you're not going to this game thinking that your job might be on the line. So I think Anthony Lynn kind of feels a little nervous. So I think he's going to call out.
Yeah, I think that I think you hit the nail on the head. And looking at my quarterback matchup, I think these games are pretty lopsided. I think the Panthers crush the Broncos. I think the Packers crush Detroit. Let's move on to the running back position. In my matchup here, I have Derrick Henry against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Derrick Henry had one of his worst games of the season last week against Cleveland, but they were down very early in that game. They kind of had to abandon the run early. Henry fumbled early, a little uncharacteristic. I think he's going to bounce back against a pretty weak defense in Jacksonville. At least that's what I'm hoping. And then in the secondary position, I usually have Antonio Gibson at RB2. I had drafted for this position Leonard Fournette to be my guy. And Leonard Fournette has had a couple of good weeks this season, has not been consistent. They're coming off of the bye week. And I'm kind of in a tough position. So I don't love that play. Normally I would have Antonio Gibson start. I picked up Peyton Barber, who's probably going to see an increase in carries for Washington. But I don't have a ton of options at the RB2 position. So that makes me a little nervous. And then on the flip side of the ball, we have some good running backs for Mr. Hazlett here. We have David Montgomery, who since the bye week has put up some 20 burgers, 25 points, 27 points apiece in his last two matchups. Another favorable matchup this week against Houston. And then Jonathan Taylor, the rookie from Indianapolis, having a breakout game last week, 22 points. He hadn't done that prior this season, but has been a consistent kind of double-digit fantasy football threat. So, I think Derrick Henry could potentially have a monster game, and I'm just kind of hoping the rule of averages helps me out here because I don't feel great about my second running back.
I think both of you guys have the same situation. You're going to have one stud and dud. I mean, if you look at last week, the Raiders gave up, they gave 100-yard rusher to the New York Jets, which just doesn't happen. So Ty Johnson went 100 yards. I think, Taylor has the opportunity to do that. I don't love Montgomery's matchup up here. I think that the strength of the Texans defense is their defensive line, their run stopping. You had J.J. Watt in there. I think Montgomery is lower tier starting running back. That's what I think. I think fantasy could be wrong. Derrick Henry is just going to blow. I think they have like 25 points, like something crazy like that. Because we want the Jacksonville Jaguars to win, but it's not going to happen. He's going to go up quick, and then they're just going to run the clock out. And I think Henry's going to just eat. He'll go over 100 yards without. And then Fournette scares me because I think Ron Jones took that job. I mean, the way that he's playing, he's playing consistent. If Tom Brady has out like Evans has practice, if Godwin hampered, obviously he's going to get into the game more. But he's kind of scary right now, RB2. But I mean, I'm looking at your roster. There's a lot of options here. Peyton Barber be the Antonio Gibbs placement because McKiss is the receiving back. So I think all the rushing yards going to go to Barber, but in EPR league, you want McKissick. So it's a toss. Also, I'm going to call that one a draw, just based on you having Henry.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that Derrick Henry is my Lord and Savior this week because he has it in him. He's done it before, and he could potentially do it again this week. It's a really great matchup. So we talked about my running backs. I think it's a little bit of a wash. We'll talk about the game matchups in a second as well, just who we like on top. But your running back matchup is, I think a little bit of a toss-up because your main guy is a little bit of a question mark, and that's Ezekiel Elliott. Sometimes he's the best back in the league, and other times he's a bit of a stinker. You're facing Dalvin Cook and Devin Singletary, who has a very tough matchup against the Steelers. And you have Austin Eckler going against the Atlanta Falcons. We already talked about the Chargers-Falcons game. So just matchup-wise, I think you're going to eat this one out. And I think you're a little fortunate that the Cowboys got the Bengals this week in terms of the matchup. He has a great matchup, whereas Dalvin Cook and the Vikings face the Buccaneers, who sometimes are really good, sometimes they're terrible, but the defense is usually somewhat consistent. It's a little bit of a tougher matchup for them.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably going to be the only game that the Cowboys win for the rest of the year. So let's go Ezekiel. Hopefully they go big, early on. So there's a lot of running going. But I don't feel comfortable about Ezekiel Elliott right now. I was going to ways to bench him, but I can't. But I think the Cowboys win this game. And this is still a game that I kind of feel all right with Zeke. I think he'll get over 10 points, and that's all I need. And as far as the other side of the ball, like he said, I mean, Dalvin Cook is Dalvin Cook. He's top 5 running back in the NFL. But the problem, I think the Bucs are going to go up early. I think, and things are going to have to throw. So they have percent which are about to talk to my team, and then Thielen's going to light it as well. I don't like any of the Bills running backs. Last week he started Zach Moss. This week starting Singletary. I love to see that. I think that's definitely a win for me on the side of the ball as well, especially against the Steelers. Steelers run defense is top notch. Redskins the football team didn't do it last week. Obviously Gibson was that. Still they didn't do anything. So I definitely think as far as this grouping goes, I'm going to get edge to me out of this.
Yeah, I think you for sure have the edge. And Dalvin Cook would have to just have a monstrous game for Marcus to get the edge here, which is possible. I mean, he put up 23 points last week against Jacksonville. A couple of weeks ago, he had 40 points back-to-back going against Green Bay and then Detroit. So it's not impossible, but I think he's got a tough matchup to deal with. I think Tampa wins that game against Minnesota. I think Dallas wins that game against Cincinnati. And I think the Steelers bounce back and beat Buffalo. But I'm not too certain about that one. Matchup-wise, what's your feeling in that game?
I think Buffalo is going to win. I mean, if you look at the teams that the Steelers beat, if you go to the list, I mean, there hasn't been besides the Titans, which that game kind of iffy the entire time with the and everything else. There's a lot of the football team. I think the Bills are a lot better than the football team. And I could see the Steelers going another loss here. And Josh Allen's just been on another level with his receivers. Cole Beasley on another planet. And Stephon Diggs. I mean, even Dawson Knox and the only players that I'm not in love with are the running backs, but that receiving core and everything Josh Allen is doing right now, I think that's the recipe to beat the Steelers, just through the air, and that's what they do. So I'm gonna go Bills as far as the match, but not Singletary as fantasy.
I definitely see that point. I don't feel great about picking the Steelers, but I just think Josh Allen's a little bit loose with the football, and I think this is a better defense than he's used to facing. I think he's going to try to run with it. I think Fitzpatrick can knock it out of his hands. And I don't know. I just kind of have this weird gut feeling that he's a little too loose with the football for his own good. But you're right. The Steelers have not played great teams, and they just lost in prime time prime time. What was it, at 5 p.m.? I don't know if that counts as prime time. Dinner time Monday Night Football game to the football team. They were on a very weird schedule, though, the Steelers. Didn't they play like Wednesday and then had to play Monday? I mean, part of that could have factored into it as well, having to play such like a drastically different schedule than what they're used to. So I don't know. Wait and see. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt personally. Let's move on to the wide receivers, Rich, because this is where I think I'm going to make my money and where I think I'm going to bury John Hazlett this week in fantasy football. And I'm not facing any slouches either. Like, if you look across the board, I'm not facing any slouches. But I think I got the best wide receivers in fantasy football this year on my team.
Yep.
All of them. And they all happen to have pretty awesome matchups. So let's start with my first favorite, Donkey Kong Metcalf, DK Metcalf, facing the lowly New York Jets. DK is a little hot and cold, but when he's hot, he is hot. And he is facing like the worst secondary in the NFL. His high this season, DK Metcalf, has been 27.7 points. I think he could get 35, honestly. I think it's going to be like off of 380-yard type of plays, but he's just so much faster than everyone on the New York Jets. I don't see a way in which he's projected 21 points. If I could bet an over on that, like I would. He's going to score over 21 points. And then my other wide receiver, and the reason why I'm not too concerned about facing Aaron Rodgers, is Devontae Adams. And Devontae Adams has been fantasy gold when he hasn't been injured. He had one game in which he scored 6 points, and that's when he got hurt. Since then, he's been double digits in every single game. The lowest was 12. The highest has been 34. Great matchup against Detroit. I think he's going to get 2 touchdowns. I think he's going to get 100 yards. I think he is going to embarrass the Detroit Lions, and that's what he's just been doing to teams every single week. He's he's fantasy gold, and I think that he will counteract anything that Aaron Rodgers is able to put up, which is why I'm not too concerned. Now, let's look at the flip side, and let's be fair to, in my opinion, the best wide receiver in the game, DeAndre Hopkins. But the Cardinals not playing great right now. They're not playing great. And they're facing the better than advertised New York Giants passing defense.
That's right. That's what we said every week.
We say it every week. I mean, it's a tough matchup. Hopkins is also a little bit banged up. He's questionable. This is questionable. Did not participate today in practice. And the other wide receiver is Brandon Cooks, who also is limited in practice, listed as questionable. Consistent this season, but not necessarily game-breaking performances, and a tough matchup against Chicago. I think I could win that matchup by about 20 points, honestly, maybe even more. So I feel really, really good there. And I just wanted to brag about my wide receivers in depth because I don't know how I managed to get all of them. Let's talk about your wide receiver matchup. And one of them is currently in progress. So it's going to be a little bit hard to discuss, but we'll kind of talk about where it is right now. We're recording this at about halftime during the Thursday Night Football Los Angeles Rams New England Patriot game. And Marcus has Cooper Kupp going with probably one of his lowest performing games of the season. Currently only 1.3 points. His best game of the year came against Buffalo. He had 25 points, a similar performance against Tampa Bay a few weeks ago. But usually he averages somewhere in the teens. But not doing well. The Rams defense is doing a great job of shutting down New England this evening. The other wide receiver also has a great matchup, but I think DK Metcalf is going to be the one burning them. Tyler Lockett, great wide receiver. He is a favorite target of Russell Wilson. A couple of weeks ago against Arizona, he had a whopping 53 points. But since then, 7, 8, 11, 21 against Arizona, and then 5 and 11. So he's really big boom or bust. It's a great matchup against the Jets. It could be the boom week, but he hasn't been a consistent scorer in Seattle. And then let's look at your wide receivers, Rich, because you have one of the most electrifying kids in the game. And I'm sure Marcus is very annoyed that he has to root against him being the Vikings fan. But Justin Jefferson has had over 20 points the last 2 weeks, and prior to outside of Dallas, the last 4 weeks has been over 20 points in fantasy. I mean, total stud and a half. And your favorite player, not mine, but good matchup, Allen Robinson, limited in practice today, but was able to go, so he more than likely will play, and has been having some good fantasy games. So where's your head at in your matchups?
I love this. I mean, my 1-2 punch here, Julio too. So the only reason he's not up there is because he's a little banged up. But having Julio too is pretty good. But having A-Rob and Justin Jefferson, can't complain at all. Justin Jefferson's my diamond in the rough that I actually trade Devontae Freeman and Miller for. If we can go back and just look at that trade, that's who I got Justin Jefferson for. So let's just pat myself back for that. I think he's gonna go off because, like I said, the Buccaneers are gonna be up quick. So I think the Vikings are gonna have to throw, and I think he's gonna have a touchdown. At least he's probably gonna go near 100 yards. His projection 16. I think he's that easily. A-Rob going against Houston. Said Houston's powers and their run stopping ability. I think A-Rob definitely get it done through the air. Mitchell Trubisky sucks. He targets every other pass, which is good. For me. So ever since Trubisky's come back, Allen Robinson's had better stats. You go across the board. Cupboard at halftime is 1.3, which is music to my ears because he was expected at like 18. I don't think he's get that based on them being up 14 points. I think the rest of the game are going to run a lot. The Rams, and then Lockett. I think Lockett and Metcalf are going to go off against the Jets. It's just a matter of how hard. I think Metcalf goes a little harder this week. But projected at 19. I don't think he hits 19. I think he hits something like a 14-15. But with the 2 versus 2 right now, definitely, I'm definitely going with my side for this.
Yeah, for sure. And we haven't gotten to the flex positions yet. I happen to have 2 wide receivers in my flex. Let me look at your lineup real quick. Are you doing the same, or do you have another running back?
I mean, as of right now, Julio goes. That's who's going to be a must for this week.
Gotcha. So we'll just kind of go in order here. We'll get into the flexes in a little bit. Let's talk about the tight end position because, man, did I really whiff on who to start last week at the tight end position. I started Trey Burton, who, I mean, had a good matchup and had been having good games, but not last week against Houston, only 2 points. And sitting on my bench was Mr. Robert Tonyan from the Green Bay Packers, who the last 3 weeks has been in the teens. He had 13 points last week. I would have won my fantasy matchup last week had I started Robert Tonyan, and I'd be the number 1 seed instead of the number 2 seed, which is fine. I'm not bitter about it. But Robert Tonyan is now my starting tight end. Again, I like the matchup against Detroit. I think that and again, this is kind of like a countermeasure. It handcuffs Aaron Rodgers a little bit. So 2 of his favorite targets to get into the end zone, who I'm facing, quarterback, are on my team. I'm going to get points too. I get more points, actually. I get the reception point. Receiving touchdowns are worth more than passing touchdowns. It's going to net positive for me. It's really going to counteract whatever performance from Aaron Rodgers, unless it's the Lazard and Marquez Valdez-Scantling show. But it seems like a stretch for Aaron Rodgers to completely avoid his top 2 guys. So I'm very happy about my tight end matchup this week. I'm facing Noah Fant from the Denver Broncos. Fant is, I believe, he led the way receiving against the Chiefs last week for the Broncos. And he's not having a bad year. He's just not having a great year. But no fantasy tight ends really have a great year. He started the season hot. Since then has been puttering around 10 points, a little bit under. Good matchup against Carolina. He could get into the end zone, but he's projected at 10 points, and I think he'll be lucky to get that. So I'll give myself the edge, but what do you think about this?
I think guys are pretty even. Just because Drew loves to play him because he loves to do the little dump off passes that quarterbacks do. Does that a lot. So he's not going to have a ton of yards, but he'll have a little receptions. Which I mean, we are in a PPR league, so yeah, we'll have to see what happens. Your guy is going to get deep, which is good. Now every week he's getting like a 30-yard pass, and then he might get into the zone. So at the end of the day, I think this one's going to be a wash. Now I'm rooting for you because obviously I want to play you next week. So let's go. Yeah, I think it's going to be a wash.
Yeah, I think that'll be tight. The projection says that as well. But I'm going to just favor me a little bit because why not? Someone has to. Anyone wondering why I just made that weird face during Rich's analysis is because we haven't gotten to defenses yet, but I'm starting the Los Angeles Rams by mistake. I forgot to update my lineup. They currently have 15 points, which, by the way, I had 18. They hold the Patriots to a field goal. You lose 3 points. I don't understand defensive scoring for fantasy football. I don't think I should lose 3 points because they gained 3 points, even though the defense is technically the one who won the matchup. I don't understand it. I have to write a letter to somebody. But they almost picked off Cam Newton again. There was a tip drill type of situation, and I got excited for my fantasy matchup. The score is 17-3 as of recording this program, and Cooper Kupp now has 4.1 points as of right now. So don't go counting your chickens just yet, Rich. You have my former tight end Austin Hooper starting at the tight end position, and you're facing TJ Hawkinson from the Detroit Lions. The Lions are going to be down. They're going to have to throw it a lot. The Browns have a pretty decent matchup against the COVID-infected Baltimore Ravens. I think that Hooper could have a pretty good game. Didn't do well against them last time. He hasn't really had a breakout performance, but the Browns kind of had a coming out party last week. I think the offense is confident, and I think they could play well this week, and a Browns team that plays well means that Austin Hooper might get some points. TJ Hawkinson, he's having himself a good year. He's been in the teens the last couple of weeks. Has been in the teens pretty consistently. Thank you. Blanked on words in English this season, and has a tough matchup. But I think that given just that they'll be down, they'll have to sling it. Stafford likes throwing to the safety blanket. I think he's going to score some points. So I'm actually going to give the edge to Marcus here. I think that Hawkinson gets a little bit more love than Austin Hooper.
It's not even close. I hate all my tight ends on my team. It's between Hooper, Hurst, and Cook. I don't think any are going to break 10 this week. I'm just relying on most of my other team to make up what Hooper's not going to do. It's just there's no left to pick up at this. So I got to go with who I think is going to have to get some play because I think the Ravens are going to score points. But yeah, no, I'm not feeling comfortable about this match at all. I think Marcus blows my points this, if not more.
Yeah, I think so as well. And we've covered both of those games matchup wise, haven't we? Yeah. Maybe not Browns Ravens. Who do you got in Browns Ravens?
I'm going with the Browns. I just Ravens. So one dimensional. I think Lamar, even though he had a good game last week, he's kind of fallen over the seams a lot of these. He has a lot of players that are down the whole COVID thing, and Mayfield's just on fire since Odell went out, which is strange. So
they beat the dog poop out of the Titans last week. I mean that was a shock. So I'm with you 100% there. I think Cleveland's going to win that game probably relatively easily as well. We're in the flex position now, and I think the flex position is really it's kind of like make or break, especially in playoffs, but just week to week. Like the flex position is really where I think you win your games. And like I mentioned earlier, I am in love with all of my wide receivers. I seem to have all of the good wide receivers on my bench. is Will Fuller, who's suspended, right, but has been having a great season. I have Robbie Anderson on my bench, who's having a great season. I have Chase Claypool on my bench, who's having a great season. It's very tough to pick between all of these wide receivers. You can tell me if I have all the right ones in, but I have decided to start Stephon Diggs. We mentioned before that we like Buffalo to win this game. The football team was able to have a good game against the Steelers. Stephon Diggs, even without a touchdown last week, had 19 points because he caught 10 balls and got 92 yards. If he could do that plus get into the end zone this week, I mean, it's kind of hard to beat. And even if he doesn't get into the end zone, I'll take 19 points again. That's fantastic. And then my other wide receiver had last week, and he's sometimes a little streaky, but the last 4 weeks he's been in double digits. I hope he can have another big game, and that's Corey Davis from the Tennessee Titans. Great matchup against Jacksonville. I believe, didn't A.J. Brown get hurt last week?
Yeah.
So, I mean, more targets for my man Corey Davis here. I don't know if he's quite good enough to be, like, the guy. Like, I think he's better because of A.J. Brown, but I think the matchup is easy enough where he, as the guy, he's going to get a lot of targets, right? And I think he's going to score some points. And I am really all in on this Titans Jacksonville matchup. I don't know what the spread is off the top of my head. I'm gonna look for
a lot.
It's got to be a lot, right?
No.
I'm wondering if it's like one of those like weird, like they're giving Jacksonville a lot of credit for playing a good game last week.
I don't think so.
It's only a 7.5 point spread.
Okay, then yes, but that makes sense. So pick the Titans.
Yeah, the Titans, I think, are just going to dominate this one. So I'm rocking Corey Davis. And now I'm facing Pittsburgh Steelers running back James Conner, who earlier in the year was having some good games. He's been a little bit on the sluggish side the last 3 weeks. Had a pretty decent game last time out against I think my app is working weird, but whatever. Because that wasn't the right matchup, but whatever. It's fine, man. Yeah, had a decent game. A tough matchup against the Bills. We kind of mentioned that the Steelers haven't been playing the best teams in the world. I think they might edge out a win here, but I think that Stephon Diggs is going to score more points than Conner. The other player in John's flex is Deebo Samuel. Deebo has been looking pretty good. He, battled some injuries, and against the Rams, he had 24 points. Against Buffalo, he had 13 points. Good matchup this week against Washington-ish. Washington's a little bit stingier than people realize as well. Kind of like that Giants pass defense. Like Washington's just a little bit better. Like the NFC East is going to become a threat, I think, a little bit. I think a little bit.
I think they're one and done, but
listen, just it depends on who they get in the playoffs. But I'm just saying, man, they're playing good football. The Giants, the football team, they're playing good football right now. You can't knock them.
Well, I mean, they're gonna get knocked this week, I think. So.
I think Washington could beat San Francisco.
I think San Francisco gets back on their feet this week. And I like Debo, but Debo got all his points like the final 10 minutes of the game last week. So he was going into the fourth quarter with barely anything. And I know that I have him on a team that I needed him to score to win those points in my league, which I did. But he had me on the edge of my seat. As far as this matchup, I always like to have two wide receivers in my flex as far as a PPR league goes, because one reception is a point. It takes 10 yards to get that same from a running back. So you're prone to get points when you have receivers in your flex. You definitely have the right two in there. Diggs and Davis definitely the play here. Anderson Denver, he's going to do something against Denver, but at the end of the day, ones you have ones that I would start as well. Kool-Aid and Egg-esque. Dante Johnson's the guy I'm trusting right now when it comes to Pittsburgh Steelers. On the other side of the ball, James Conner, obviously, he hasn't played in a while because of the whole COVID thing. I don't know how he's going to come back. He's going to be rusty. Again, he's a running back, so he has an uphill battle to be with. And Debo, like I said, he got all his points at the end of the game. But Ayuk, I really like combo for the San Francisco 49ers. So I have the Niners winning the game. I think Debo is going to end up with like 12 or 13. It probably would be the same. But on the other side of the ball, I think Diggs could both go over 15 to 16 points at least. So again, I'm with you on this.
I'm gonna flex on him in the flex position.
There you go.
And I love the tandem of Ayuk and Debo. I think that's a really nice young wide receiver tandem for San Francisco for years to come. But I like Washington in that one. I think they played a tough game against the Steelers. And I don't know. Just got a soft spot for Alex Smith.
Well, me too. Honestly, it cost me a dollar, but I mean, I love the guy. So
dollar well spent. Let's talk about your flex matchup here. We've talked about both of these games, but Marcus is going with the tight end, Mark Andrews, in the flex spot, which to me is always so risky, just because there aren't that many good tight ends for fantasy football. Like maybe if your first one was Darren Waller and then you also had another consistent tight end, maybe. But I think this is a bit of a bold choice. It's a good matchup against Cleveland, and he's been in the double digits the last 2 weeks. He's probably one of the better tight ends in the league. But I'm not a huge fan of the idea of starting a tight end in the flex position just because of how inconsistent that position is. And then I never know how to say this dude's name, but Kiki Cutie.
We'll go with that. Kute. Yeah.
I like Kiki Cutie.
We'll call him. As long as he doesn't score, he can be cute.
Exactly. Well, last week he scored a lot of points against Indy, 22.1.
He did, yeah.
But prior to that, the man's been a ghost. So
yep.
I think that's a bit of a flash in the pan. And you are rocking Julio pending injury. Where are you thinking of going if he can't play on Sunday?
Well, if he can't play, I'm going to go against what I said about the running back situation because Mike Davis is going to be starting for the Carolina Panthers this week because Chris McCaffrey is in. And all Mike Davis does is score more maintenance each week. So I want to start Mike Davis if I could in any possible play, but I can't. I'm not going to bench Julio for him. But if you look at his points, 15.9, and then he had 10 points against the Vikings, 10.9 against the Lions. He definitely could put up points.
If I were you, honestly, I think I would go with Tim Patrick. If Julio can't go, I think Carolina's defense is a little suspect. And you just kind of look at the last few weeks, minus New Orleans, Tim Patrick's been in double digits. He had 20 points against Kansas City last week. It's a good matchup. I think Drew Lock is getting a little bit more comfortable slinging the football a bit. So if Julio can't go, I would consider Tim Patrick on your bench. But let's assume Julio can go, and Julio's a stud. Like what else do you want me to say? He's a wide receiver one, and then you got the man we mentioned before, Dante Johnson. I think you're flexing on Marcus in the flex position as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Marcus's team, there's no one on his bench that could sub in for anyone that he's starting. You look at his bench, there's not a player here that is a starter on any team. So he can't, he got lucky with not having a single three, which is good. But yeah, I mean, the way his team is set up, there's really no substitutions for him. So he definitely set the team in the right way. When Zach Moss was in there last, I was like, thank you very much. Which is what I'm saying about Singletary this week. But I think he has the right matchup for sure.
He also has 5 players on IR that he's stashing for next year for Dynasty. So Marcus might be playing for next year already. Let's keep it with you and let's lump together kickers and defenses You have Zane Gonzalez at the kicker position, and the 49ers defense. Even though I picked Washington to win that game, I think that's a good defensive start. They're projected 9 points. I think they'll probably end up with that, 10, 11. They might be able to get a sack or two. I don't know if we're going to see any defensive touchdowns in that game. Alex Smith is usually pretty safe with the football, but I think he'll get sacked. And then on the other side, Marcus has your favorite kicker, Young Hoku from the Atlanta Falcons, and the Titans defense against the Jags. And the Titans defense, Rich, is like on paper they're good, but they've never been good.
Yep.
Like they somehow get respected as like a good defense. I don't know why, but
just a variable.
Yeah, and they're not good at all. They've had one decent fantasy football defensive performance against the Chicago Bears. They had 16 points. Other than that, they've been under 10 or in the negatives. It's a good matchup against Jacksonville, but listen, I think the Giraffe might be the starter in Jacksonville next year. Mike Glennon.
I hope so, because that means they don't have the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, I mean, he's slinging it. He got him to overtime last week. I know he threw the pick in overtime, but like he's not afraid to throw the football, and I think he's going to sling it a little bit and get on the board at least a couple of times. Like they're not going to not score.
No.
And Tennessee's defense isn't that good, so I think you have the edge as well at the defense position. Honestly, the kicker thing is just a toss up. I have no way to really predict what's going on.
I'm gonna go with him on that side just because there's gonna be no defense to speak of, and so I think Koo is gonna have probably 12 to 15 points, and I'll have 8 to something like that.
Yeah.
So I'm going with him.
And then looking at my matchups here, I am rocking the kicker Brandon McManus. I have been a little disappointed in my boy McManus the last couple of weeks. Only 5 points, 9 points, but better matchup. I think the Broncos will be able to move the football a little bit better. I don't know if they're going to score touchdowns, but they'll get into field goal range. And I think that McManus will get me a little bit more than 5 points this week, maybe in the 7 to 9 range. I love when you can get double-digit points out of your kicker, though. And on the other side, I'm facing Harrison Butker, the kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs. Last week against Denver had 17 points. There was a lot of field goals, a lot of extra points. But that defense was able to kind of hold Kansas City to field goals, which doesn't happen too often. They're facing the Dolphins this week. I think the Chiefs are going to be able to score touchdowns against the Dolphins. And I think that Butker probably gets closer to 6 points because he's kicking 6 extra points or something crazy like that. So let's call that one a wash. And then my defense is currently in progress. The Los Angeles Rams has 16 points. They had a defensive touchdown in the first half. They've currently only allowed 3 points. There was just a deep ball completed to my boy N'Keal Harry. So I'm going to be watching that game like a hawk. And then speaking of hawks, like that segue, Rich? That was pretty good.
I do. That was pretty good. Yeah.
I'm facing the Seattle Seahawks defense, who have the New York Jets on their schedule. Normally, the Seahawks defense is a joke, but against the Jets, who knows, man? They could get a pick 6 or 2. I don't know. No, honestly, the Jets looked really, really good last week. It was probably the best they've looked offensively, and I think that it's a bit of a trope to just start whatever defense is facing the Jets. I think that's going to be a bit of a mistake here because the Seahawks defense is pretty talentless, and people on the Jets are trying to prove they deserve a roster spot. I'm not saying the Jets win, but they're going to put up points again. I mean, they're clicking a little bit offensively. They can throw the football, and I think that the Jets want to laugh at Jamal Adams a little bit. Like, I think they want to burn him for a touchdown at least. So I think my defense is going to eke out the Seahawks defense somehow, some way. What are you thinking here?
I agree with. I think Ty Johnson last week he went over 100 yards. I think the running back is used early and often. I think the tight end position is going to be used early and often because Denzel Mims isn't playing, which kind of hurts. the calls there with the Seattle Seahawks defense, and then Crowder is also hurt. If Crowder isn't, I'm a little more concerned about this because Crowder is just going to shred the Seattle defense. Parrot's going to probably beat a couple deep balls. At the end of the day, the Seattle Seahawks are going to win by at least 14 points, I think. But their defense isn't going to do them any favors. That's just going to be your boy DK and Lockett and Wilson going off. But yeah, I think 10 is what they're projected at. I think that's what that.
Yeah, and right now after a month, Aaron Donald just ate Cam Newton. I don't know if you have the game on, but straight up just ate Cam Newton. It was kind of vicious. I have 17 points at 11:55 in the third quarter. Watch the Patriots get 7 touchdowns in the fourth quarter.
Not gonna happen.
We're recording this show. We're gonna go off air, and that's gonna be my luck.
Cam Newton's is so bad.
Yeah. And
he can run and he can't throw.
I wonder if part of it is just not having a real off season this season, him learning the new system and the Patriot way and all that kind of stuff, or if it's just he's bad.
I think it's just him. Yeah, I think he's great as a running back. He got the Josh Allen where Josh Allen became Josh Allen thing going on, but Cam Newton old now, so he's regressing. But yeah, no, I don't think they're coming back from this. That's fourth down now anyway, so we'll talk.
Yeah, I feel you. And here we go. I'm gonna lose 3 points because
they're not in field goal range.
Okay, they're punting. It doesn't make any sense though. The defense gets the win, they kick a field goal, and you lose 3 fucking points.
Yeah, but I mean that's it's not gonna happen again. If they kick another field, you don't lose another 3.
It just
it's the first 3.
It just feels wrong, is all I'm saying.
Getcha. I know what you're saying.
It's just not right. The defense won.
Yeah, I think 17 points is a major win in any league, by the way. So
I want more.
All right, but you're gonna win. So
yeah. With that, we are both projected to win on our respected fantasy app Sleeperbot. I am projecting you to win. I am projecting me to win. You are projecting you to win. You are projecting me to win. I will see you next week when we both lose.
Yeah, well, that's what happens in fantasy, right? So no, but I mean, you should definitely win your map. I'm a little iffy on mine because my guys always are big names and they suck. I did beat Marcus last week, but whenever you face someone and then in the playoffs, you lose. So. Yeah.
It's hard to beat someone twice in a row in real football, in fantasy football, in anything. Yeah. It's hard to win twice in a row. And it was a pretty narrow victory for you last week, right?
Only 6 months.
Yeah. So anything can happen. Let us know who you're starting in your fantasy football playoffs. Maybe if you're in a little bit of a smaller league, your playoff hasn't started just yet. Maybe you're trying to get into the playoffs this week. Hopefully this has been of some use for you. Thank you so much for listening this week. And every week I remember to post. I apologize. We record it every week. I don't always remember to post them. I'm very bad at this. But we have a lot of fun making this. Thank you so much for tuning in every single time that I remember to upload it. We have a lot of fun making it. Remember to like and subscribe and leave comments. And the more you interact, the more I'll remember to post the shows. So, it's only help us to help you kind of deal here. And as we've been in search of our tagline every single week, how we want to end the show, I still don't remember the first time I said it, but allegedly that'll do her. We'll see you next week.